Yeah. Oh, we are so back. Yep, you already know what this package is. It's actually criminal how I had to wait 3 days after the release date of this book to finally receive it in the mail, even though I pre-ordered it. And I had to wait another 5 days after that because I've been too busy with work. In the perfect world, I would just be a hardcore Hunger Games stan and dedicate my whole life to Hunger Games. But life is not like that. And unfortunately, I had to wait forever to finally do this. But we are here. We're going to open this. I've been waiting to open this on camera because it's just such a pivotal moment in my life that I had to document this. I was a part of the time period where we were getting all of those iconic series, Divergent, Twilight, Hunger Games, Harry Potter, Percy Jackson, the Olympians, all of that. But I actually did not read Hunger Games as a kid. Even though I grew up watching all the movies, like Catching Fire was one of my favorite movies I ever watched when I was younger, and that's so telling that it would be my favorite book now. So glad that I read it for the first time last year because I got to understand it in a way that was much more grown-up way rather than for entertainment if I read it as a child, if that makes sense, because social issues are so important to me, and seeing a writer include that in her work in such a fantastical way, I think is just amazing. And so I fell in love with Colin's writing from that moment I read Hunger Games for the first time last year. And of course, I watched Ballads and Songbirds and Snakes. Rachel Zegler is my girl. Tom Blythe, they ate it up. And that has been my personality ever since until they announced this book. So we are going to finally open it. I'm so excited because this is literally about to be my whole personality. Same thing when Odyssey comes out. Oh, you're gonna be sick of me. You're going to be sick of me, and you're gonna be sick of me after this video. I also wanted just to take a day, which today is finally the day, to sit down, read it from the very beginning to the very end, annotate it, and just sit with my thoughts. And you guys are going to experience the emotional turmoil I'm about to be on and all that fun stuff that you get to see. Oh my god, she's gorgeous. It's so fitting that the next book that I review on this page is going to be a Hunger Games book. Like, you don't understand how excited I am to be a part of a timeline where we all get a new Hunger Games book and we all read it together and we all cry and just experience emotional distress. So I don't want to turn this page. I already almost cried a couple pages ago, and I know what's coming after I flip this page, and I'm definitely gonna cry again. And I don't want to cry, so I'm not gonna flip the page, and I'm gonna sit in silence. Here we go. This is me before flipping the page. No words, really, right now. I'll see you in the morning with my review of this insane book. Absolutely insane. Suzanne Collins, you are a mastermind. Truly, truly insane. Hey guys, so as you can probably tell, it's been a good month. I tell myself all the time I need to be better about filming on time or just like filming my thoughts after I read something, and I'm actually glad I didn't with this book because I would not know how to act. I could not articulate my thoughts after I finished that book, and I fear that I am still recovering. So I may sound a little crazy. That's just because Suzanne Collins has literally run me through the trenches. Yeah, I was not okay after I read this book. I think this was the first time I have ever really like taken in a book and sobbed about it. Word of advice, do not read this book and then immediately watch edits or push yourself in the fandom even more on, you know, the wikis, the Reddits, all that stuff, right after you read this book. Because you'll end up like this. Whatever you do, don't watch Sunrise on the Reaping edits right after you finish Sunrise on the Reaping. Don't do it. Yeah. She was going through it a couple months ago. But, you know, I'm back and I'm here with my thoughts. And of course I had to come dressed for the occasion. If I didn't want to add to, obviously, everything even more, I'm wearing my dead boyfriend on my t-shirt. Yeah. So, am I okay? Probably not after reading this book. But you know what? I have to give you guys my thoughts. I truly do, and that's what you're here for. I would honestly give Sunrise on the Reaping 5 stars, hands down. Maybe I'm being biased. Maybe I am. But also, I think that the importance of how Suzanne Collins only writes when she has something to say definitely came through in this book. But I would not say that this was my favorite piece in the Hunger Games series. The first thing that I did like about this book is just, of course, learning more about Haymitch's character, who he is as a person, and how the games influenced him and got him to the person he is in the trilogy. I like that Suzanne makes him this unlucky character. He technically is the chosen one because he survives his games. He is the only victor to come out of the games. However, I like that he is unlucky. Haymitch is so unlucky that he gets reaped when he wasn't even supposed to be reaped. And on his birthday. Hello. One thing I did see a lot of people talk about or critique about this book was that there were too many parallels happening. We had too many reoccurring characters from the trilogies being introduced or reintroduced in Sunrise on the Reaping. I don't necessarily agree with what people are saying about some of the parallels. They're calling it fan service, which potentially, yes, some of the things that she may have added were fan service. But I also think that she still connected it in a way that was well thought out and impacted the plot enough for us as a reader to learn about the characters and learn about the connections he had with these characters and why this rebellion became the way that it was in the trilogy. Why Katniss was pushed, you know, as the symbol for the rebellion. And why, I mean, when I was reading Catching Fire, obviously we learn about these characters and they want to help Katniss. But learning about them in Haymitch's story, you truly understand why they even wanted to help Haymitch in the first place, where it almost seemed like a no-brainer to help Haymitch in the trilogy to get Katniss to the point to where she was in Catching Fire. And a lot of people will argue, well, when we first learn about Effie and Haymitch in the first Hunger Games book, you know, it didn't really seem like they knew each other for, you know, the 25 plus years. I didn't really sense that sort of disconnect between the two characters. And honestly, with the way that Haymitch was acting in the trilogy, maybe that just shows Effie's thoughts towards, you know, Haymitch's actions after the game, or how Snow has really changed Haymitch as a person from the person that Effie knew when she was dressing him and getting ready for the interviews to the person he was after the games. Then of course we also learn about his classmates, which I think were a great addition, and we learned that his classmates, his friends, were Katniss's parents. Burdock and Astrid are Katniss's parents. We get the name drop and we learn that Haymitch was close with Katniss's father. And that to me just tells me why Haymitch's and Katniss's relationship was full of depth. When you read the books, when you watch the movies, you feel something different about their relationship. And I mean, that just tells us even more once you especially get to the epilogue about how he feels about Katniss, how much he actually wants to be there for Katniss, because, you know, with Burdock dying in the mining incident, Haymitch sort of becomes Katniss's fatherly figure in the trilogy. And on that note, Snow is a cruel human being for making Beetee become his son's mentor as punishment for what he did in his games, and making him the mentor to his son, knowing that he is sentencing Ambert to death in the games, knowing that a father has to watch his child literally die in the games. Like, you are a sick human being, Snow, but also Suzanne, like, hello? And also, might I argue, Ambert had the worst death. Like, his flesh was torn from his bones by flesh-eating squirrel mutts. That is, like, horrible. Also, reading this book, I think I was much more emotional finishing it than when I read the trilogy, when I read ballads, because I just think that previous knowledge, also obsession with the series, having a new book and reading it, and then, you know, getting the small things about Haymitch, getting the small things about Katniss's story, learning more about the franchise, I guess this book just became a huge impact on, you know, what it added to the series. Another thing I really loved from this book was Maisley Donner's character growth. First of all, she was already a super strong character, but I think seeing her character grow throughout the games, but also her relationship with Haymitch grow, I thought was excellent. And putting her as the last three, you know, remaining participants in the game, I just thought her death was probably the most impactful one. Who have grown to like this character throughout the book, and of course she had to die. Let's also talk about literally Suzanne ripping my heart out of my chest, because how are you gonna mention to me in the very beginning, first few chapters, that yes, while Haymitch helps Hattie with her white liquor business, he does not drink. But in the trilogy, he's an alcoholic. Yes. Well, yes. You know, going back to the trilogy, going back to Mockingjay and Effie and Haymitch talking about, you know, like the whole makeup thing, and she goes, well, I like you better when you were sober. Cut the cameras. So how are you gonna tell me that he does not like alcohol, he doesn't drink alcohol, and then he becomes an alcoholic? That just shows, like, obviously we knew that the games were horrible. The games are distressing. But the way that he literally uses alcohol to mask his feelings, to hide the trauma. Insane. And I just think that also reveals about how it's not just like the districts as well that are victims to Snow's control. It's also capital citizens, because we also, of course, we learn so much about propaganda. We learn about the way that Snow is controlling the narrative of the games. The capital citizens also, they're not entirely privileged, because of course we know about Snow's background, but Drusilla and Magno are also so useless in this story. They're drunk and incoherent, and still they are capital citizens. But it just shows that, like, you can't escape like these certain topics and themes. Like, alcohol is a main theme because of the way that they use it as escapism. I also really love the inclusion of talking about the headstones. I thought that that was a really good thing to add, because of course we learned that the Coveys and Ballads of Songbirds and Snakes don't have a home or district that they call home. Them having that safe space, the meadow, you know, just realizing about Burdock, realizing that Katniss is a Covey, realizing why Katniss finds so much solitude and comfort in the meadows, and revealing the headstones as like a memorial for the Coveys, even though they're this moving band, just still having a place that they sort of find home, which was the meadows. But also I noticed that they did have a headstone for Lucy Gray, so that also made me wonder if it was an actual headstone, if her body was buried there, or if it was a memorial, because obviously we know that she flees in Ballads of Songbirds and Snakes, and Snow literally is still hung up after her, of course, throughout the whole trilogy. And so we never really know what happens to Lucy Gray, but I also love the inclusion of her in this book because it just shows that she is always there in the trees. She's always going to be a driving force in Snow's character and Snow's motives and his actions, and then just the driving force of why the Hunger Games exist and what is going on. So I really thought that was amazing. And Haymitch being practically only one of few people especially from the districts, that knows about Lucy Gray and knows about her involvement in Snow's life. Of course, we have to talk about the end. We have to talk about the gumdrops. Yes, Suzanne Collins, you're sick. Gumdrops were also sort of a very niche symbol in ballads, where Sejanus is holding gumdrops in the book next to Snow. And in Sunrise on the Reaping, Haymitch is the one to feed Lenore Dove, the love of his life, a poisonous gumdrop. And it's just all how Snow kind of wanted it to play out. So it's basically going back to also Snow's control about everything. He's like, yes, you won the games. You still need to understand that I'm the one controlling you. And so he kills Haymitch's brother, he kills Haymitch's mom. Their house is burning when he comes back after having to endure a train ride with his fellow newcomers, his District 12 friends' coffins. And then he proceeds to find Lenore Dove finally, and then have to watch her die, and he was the one who fed her gumdrops. Okay, yeah. So, one thing I do have to say is that I was finding myself reading this book more so for the characters rather than the games. And I think with the trilogies, the driving factor of those books were the games. I felt like the games sort of lacked in this sense, but I still think that the elements of the mutts, the elements of learning about the mechanical side of the arena definitely were very much needed to our knowledge of the Hunger Games. I would say one thing I am really wanting out of this series, if it continues, is potentially a book on the Dark Days. Me personally, I don't think that a book about Lucy Gray is needed. I like that she's this mysterious character, and I like the way that it was handled. Of course I love Finnick, but I don't really feel like a book about Finnick or Annie's, their relationship is necessarily needed. Of course, I would read it if it came out. What I'm really looking forward to is a book about the Dark Days. It doesn't even have to be from the point of view of Snow, or even Snow's father, or even Tigress's point of view. Yes, I would love to know more about Tigress in this situation. Obviously, like, what happened to her? Why did Snow completely, use his cousin for his control? Obviously, learning about that whole thing would have been amazing. But just the Dark Days in general, I think would be such a smart thing to add to the series. I also loved the song elements still featured throughout Sunrise on the Reaping. I like that it wasn't as heavy as it was in ballads, because ballads make sense. We're talking about a Covey member. We're talking about the way that her music is influencing the narrative. We understand why Hanging Tree is so important, but it still made me feel that Lucy Gray was still with us in this book. So that's why I kind of like the song elements. It could have done without him, but I still like that it was in here. And of course, I'm excited about the movie. Oh my god, every time a casting announcement comes out, I'm like, oh, oh, that's gonna eat, that's gonna hit. Like, I am excited. You're gonna have to like literally, oh, I'm there, I'm sad. You're gonna have to pull me out of that chair and drag me out of that theater. I'm really excited to see how they develop the mutts. Also, like having like my VFX diploma, I want to see how they create the mutts with like, you know, CGI. But also, I think that the Lulu reveal is gonna be insane. I mean, you know, Lulu basically being what Peeta was for Katniss, to kind of, I mean, they mention it in the book that it was Snow's gift. Obviously, we know how Lulu is revealed, but I'm excited to see it on screen. I'm also curious to see if the movie directors and the writers are going to take their own approach in adding more insight about what the capital and the district is seeing during the games. I'd really love to see how the rebellion sort of starts pushing to the point that we see in the trilogy. Overall, great book. Am I ready for my heart to be ripped out of my chest again for this next book? Honestly, no. Especially once this movie comes out. Like, I don't know how I'll be able to physically handle another book out of the series. But again, I am here for everything that Suzanne Collins writes. So, you know, this won't be the last of me that you see me talk about Hunger Games, of course. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Again, if you want to follow along for the journey, I am also an aspiring author, so I will be posting writing content soon. But for now, I'm really happy that you are here. And if you've read this book, let me know your thoughts in the comments, because honestly, I think we all need therapy for what Collins did to us in this book after reading this. And I really want to see if other people were physically like as distraught as I was in those clips, because honestly that was kind of vulnerable of me to share. So please tell me I'm not alone in this. But anyways, thanks for watching, and yeah, bye! I don't think I've cried this much over a book before. This is crazy.